Today on CityCast Boise, the news this week is almost as hot as the weather, so Boise State Public Radio's George Prentice is here to break down the stories you need to know. We're talking about the 3 final candidates for Boise Police Chief, a sharp increase in Idahoans traveling to Montana for abortions, plus ways to keep cool and safe through this brutal heat wave. It's Friday, July 12th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. This has been a hot week, both for the weather and the news.
Indeed.
One of the stories I definitely want us to talk about is that Boise has announced that they have 3 finalists for the Boise Police Department chief.
Absolutely. And I guess the headline for me is, boy, do I have questions. That's not to say we don't know who they are yet, but not one of them is coming through the Boise Police Department. It's not a rank and file member.
I think you echo a lot of the sentiment I've heard from a lot of people since this news has broken that, nobody is from this area. One candidate is from Tucson. One is from Tomball, Texas, a really small town. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. Very small town in Texas, and the Dalles, Oregon. And so nobody's from here, which is maybe a surprising move with the recent history of the Boise Police Department.
Absolutely. On too many occasions when the police department has gotten into a bit of trouble in the last, let's just say 5 or 10 years, one of the first questions is, why did you hire this person? And the best chief I think that most people can remember in recent memory would be Chief Bill Bones, who came up through the ranks. And we don't expect every cop on the force to love the chief. As a matter of fact, it's probably healthy that they don't. But it also helps if the chief understands what his force is going through on a daily basis. So let's assume that these 3, their resumes just sparkled so very much that they are the cream of the crop. So we were told that there were 20 applicants, 20 good applicants, maybe 20 applicants that had at least the references. The
qualifications that would
and
make
then
them a contender.
Whittled down to 8 and now 3. And the 3 are coming to Boise to have some time with the force and the public. And I guess we'll talk about when the public can meet them. But let's face it, you know what those meetings are like. It's coffee and donuts. You can't really drill into someone. And you usually regret not asking the question that you wanted to ask in a room. Let's assume that 50, 100 people show up. What are you going to do? Shake his hand and that's about it? Because whatever he says, and by the way, they're all males, they're all white men, whatever he says, he's going to try to sell you on him. He wants this job. It's really interesting considering that the last full-time chief, the last hire, if you will, ended really badly. Ryan Lee was asked to resign, and only since then have we found some pretty awful things in some internal investigations that went on inside the department. And not only was he asked to resign, but the mayor then had to ask a former chief to come out of retirement, and that's Ron Weiniger, and serve as the acting chief. And he has said that he will be gone this September. So we do know this much, that this is going to be a pretty quick process if the mayor wants to fill this spot by the time Ron Weiniger walks out the door for the second time.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. And like you mentioned, July 18th at the Boise Train Depot from 6 to 7:30 p.m., the candidates will be at a town hall type meeting. But the questions they're going to be answering are provided by a recruitment firm. It's not public questions. They said that residents could talk to the candidates informally afterwards, but it's not going to be local questions that they're answering. It comes from the recruitment firm.
I guess I mean, you've been in job interviews. I know I have. Usually, one of the first questions that you want to ask someone is, well, what do you know about Boise?
Yeah.
And I would be interested to know if they have, well, drank the Kool-Aid or read the press release from the Boise Chamber, or if they know that Boise is very nuanced and is in
Yes.
transition and has had great moments, but too many challenging moments and too many moments with the Boise Police Department that could have been handled better. And so, if they can answer that question honestly, that's a start.
Well, and there's been a lot of over the recent past, there's a lot of distrust with the community, with the police department. Like those are relationships that really need some work, and some leadership and some really like solid communication. And do they know that? Like, are they
Right.
aware of everything that's been going on? Are they like, hey, this is an idyllic, small size city to raise a family. I want to move there. Like, I definitely would hope we would get somebody who understands the city. And I mean, one of the candidates is coming from the Dalles, and that's
Hmm.
a town of 15,000. The Tomball, Texas is like less than 3,000 people. So what is maybe the experience then moving to a city the size of Boise? Is that going to translate? Do they have the experience to manage a much larger area with many more people and a much larger police force?
Absolutely. Right. I mean, here we go, right? The questions are just mounting. I'm thinking about this indelicate balance that Boise has with the state of Idaho. We share real estate with the legislature. They're literally right down the street from Boise City Hall. That said, the way that the supermajority of the legislature looks at law enforcement versus how the city of Boise looks at things are dramatically different. For instance, the mayor has said in no uncertain terms, will the Boise police force investigate individuals and or healthcare providers who perform abortions? While the state legislature has said, and it is law now, that it is illegal and healthcare providers and individuals can be charged with a crime if there's an abortion that's performed here in
Yeah.
Idaho, and let's assume performed here in Boise. And the mayor has said, no, absolutely not. If you expect my police department to go and investigate these people, you've got another thing coming. There is so much nuance. We could go all
Yes.
day with this. And to your point, the arrests, the politically charged arrests of people on the far left and the far right, and the worst three words in law enforcement, and that is officer involved shooting,
Yeah.
right? What is your experience with officer involved shootings?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's so many lawsuits currently happening
Yeah.
um, with the Boise Police Department. There have been shooting incidences that are being investigated. So there's a lot going on in the department right now. There's a lot of issues. It just is that. So I don't know that in an hour and a half with canned questions from a recruitment firm that we will be able to get a sense of who these men are and what they are going to do to help with the situation in Boise. I know they're on the clock. I know Weininger has made his position very clear, but I worry about the rushed nature of it. Or if nobody feels like a good fit, are they going to go back to square one? Like it does feel very rushed.
I hope so. I hope so. If anything, I some of the biggest lessons I've learned is bad hiring decisions. And you have to be able to say, you know what, not just yet, because it has to be as good as possible. It really, really does. There's too much at stake here, let alone the fact that it's a huge slice of our city's budget.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope, even though it's a very short meet and greet, that if the public does not feel like these candidates are it, that those voices would be listened to.
And I would urge all of us not to want to hear someone tell us what we want to hear. I would urge everyone to really have really sharp radar of someone who does understand the nuance of this town, and there is a lot of nuance.
Want to know one of my favorite sounds? Here it is. That's the sound I hear when I'm learning Spanish with Babbel. And if you want to learn a new language this year, I guarantee it'll be one of your favorite sounds too. I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, and I've been doing Babbel for a few weeks, and it's been so much fun. This week, I've been learning lots of food vocabulary and how to order in a restaurant. This is one of the things I love about Babbel, is that it's about learning the language so that you can use it. As Babbel says, it's designed by real people for real conversation. So it's all based on real life situations. And these restaurant lessons are awesome. When I went to Mexico City last year with my girlfriend, I was mute. I was a mute. But next time, I'm going to be ordering the sopes and las salsas picantes. Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold, plus all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
George, there's been an interesting update of information regarding abortion and Idahoans and the states they're traveling to get health care. What have you heard about this?
Well, indeed, after the repeal of Roe v. Wade in 2022, the state banned most abortions, with exceptions of rape, incest, or if the life of the mother is in danger. The U.S. Supreme Court ruling on that just recently. But the fact is that Idahoans are getting abortions. In some cases, they are emergencies, but in many cases, it is out of state. So we have learned, which is to say Boise State Public Radio, our team has learned, we turned to Montana. We were pretty surprised that it turns out that the number of Idahoans having abortions in Montana has tripled. So it's not just a little, it has tripled. And we spoke to the chief medical officer there. It's, according to the Department of Health and Welfare, between 2021 and 2022, about 30 Idahoans traveled to Montana to receive abortions. And that number is now, 3 times that number. So indeed, it's happening, and it's happening at probably a greater number than anyone expected. And if anyone at the State House thought that these bans were going to stop abortions, they're wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what we found is, as the right colloquially likes to say about other things, bans don't work at actually stopping something. Yeah. And I think this report is so interesting because something that has been difficult to obtain is numbers, because Oregon and Washington and California have shield laws. Anecdotally, we know people are leaving the state, but we don't always have the numbers to back up what we're hearing, what we're seeing. So having this data that shows that there's 3 times as many patients traveling to Montana, just Montana, is eye-opening.
And think of that. Think of that traveling. It has to be an ordeal by the time they've made it to a clinic in Montana. Some have driven hours and hours, taken time off work, a lot more time off work, finding childcare, figuring out the transportation. And still, after all of that, what we heard is that patients told the caregivers in Montana, frankly, they were overcome with relief, that they could get the care that they needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course they were. All the bans did is make it significantly more difficult for patients to get the care that they are seeking. And so, like you said, they're having to figure out childcare. They're having to figure out how to take time off work. And it's a medical procedure. It's a medical procedure that you need some time to heal from. So now patients are not only, you can't get it close. You can't travel there close and then be able to recover. They're having to take time off work for this travel and then time off work to recover. Hopefully they have enough PTO or time to take the time to actually heal.
Absolutely. And for those who thought that it was mostly people driving over to Oregon, well, that's not necessarily the case. And for those people who thought, well, they would fly to California, that's not necessarily the case. Montana and Wyoming are conservative states. And we learned, for instance, in Wyoming last year, over 200 women came to Wyoming for abortions, most of them from Idaho.
It's so interesting. It's been very interesting for me to watch this unfold, watch this play out, that it's not stopping abortion, but people are going to all of our neighboring states to get their care, even other states that are conservative, that with our laws that are some of the strictest in the country and maybe some of the most draconian, that people just travel. They're just leaving the state to get the care that they need. But then that has impacts for those states too, because when 200 patients or 100 patients or, however many patients who would have gotten care here in Idaho go to another state to get care, another clinic, that is taking up slots and space in those clinics. So then people who need that care in that state, their wait times are increasing too. And so this has a ripple effect for all of our neighbors and for the healthcare available to everyone in the neighboring states.
There are a number of states in the U.S. where abortion will be on the ballot this November. I would not be terribly surprised if there is a really big effort to put this on the ballot at some point in the near future in Idaho. Voters changed Medicaid. This year, voters are going to talk about open primaries on Election Day. Why wouldn't it be on the ballot? Why wouldn't Idahoans have some say in this?
Yeah, we actually had an interview a few months ago with a group that is working to do that. And I believe the group was Idahoans United for Women and Families. And they emphasized quite a bit that this is everyday Idahoans. This is the people in the PTO, the people you see at the grocery store, business owners, just everyday Idahoans who are recognizing the hardship that these abortion bans are placing on family members, friends, people in the community, and that's not really Idaho values. That, whether you agree with abortion or not, or whether you'd get one or not, really, the Idaho I grew up in was whether I would do that or not do it, you do you, I do me. We respect each other. And that they definitely, like you said, I think this will become an issue in Idaho, something that gets on the ballot, or there's a push to get it on the ballot, because so many people are being impacted and our laws are so extreme.
Absolutely. And for those who are convinced that there is a political divide on this, they couldn't be more wrong. This cuts across all classes, and I don't think politics has anything to do with this decision.
So, George, I always like to end the Friday show with top picks, maybe something a little lighter or just something people would want to hear about over the weekend. So, George, what is your top
Surprise,
pick?
surprise. It's a movie.
That's why we have you on. I can always count on you for these great movie takes.
I really I want everyone to see a new movie. It is called Majority Rules. It is a documentary, and it's a really good documentary. We seem to be in a golden age of really good docs. And it's called Majority Rules. It is coming to the Flicks in Boise, but it's one night only, Wednesday, July 17th. It is about, are you ready for this? The open primaries. It couldn't be more ripped from the headlines. As a matter of fact, just the other day, the Secretary of State affirmed the signatures, and the open primary question is going to be on November's ballot.
Yeah.
So I was curious about this movie. I went to see it, and it's a really fast-moving, entertaining documentary. A.J. Schnack, who has won awards, he's a member of the Motion Picture Academy. You've seen his work on ABC and ESPN and Amazon and Disney Plus. So somebody said, would you like to do a movie about open primaries? And he said, oh, that just sounds weird, or a boondoggle. But he started traveling the country, going up to Alaska, where they recently agreed to open primaries. And he found, big surprise, most people in the middle saying, yes, I want more choices. Because when you have closed primaries, you have such a slim number of registered voters who are deciding who are going to be our leaders. And those incumbents only care about that, I don't know, 7, 8% of the voters. And so they count out to them. It's called majority rules. What I'm really excited about is that after the movie, there's going to be a panel discussion at the Flicks, and the director will be there. He's flying in from Hollywood, and some other people. But former Governor Butch Otter, a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, is going to be on the panel. And so, hey, folks, let's learn about this issue, because I think that the campaign for this, I think there's going to be a lot of lies that are put out to people, because supermajorities do not want open primaries, to be sure.
No.
And anyone who tells you that this is a scheme to get Democrats elected, guess what? In Nevada, where open primaries are on the ballot and where Democrats have a supermajority of the House and the Senate there, they're against it too, because they don't want to lose their supermajority. This is not about party versus party. This is about giving voters more choices. It's a movie called Majority Rules. It's so good.
I am so excited about that. That is immediately going on my calendar. And that is something that I thought is really interesting in Idaho, is how there are seeing the Republicans who are in favor of it, along with the Democrats, the independents. And like you said, I've said this all along. The reason supermajorities don't like it is because they've got a formula to win already. Like it's like the formula to win an election is pretty set in stone with our system we have now. And this gives so much power to the voters, and they will have to listen to voters. They will have to change their systems, and they don't want to do that.
I honestly think that right now there are certain people in big offices in the state of Idaho. If we had an open primary where there were 2 Republicans on the ballot, not just in the primary, but in the general election, I think, for instance, we would not have the attorney general that we would have right now, I believe.
No.
The only reason I think that Raul Labrador is the attorney general is because he won the GOP election against the incumbent. And it was a closed primary of only Republicans. Can you imagine if Lawrence Wasden and Raul Labrador were in a general election with everyone voting? I'd like to see what that election would have turned out to be.
Yep, I have said it so many times, and I firmly believe when you have a close primary in a state with a supermajority, you get extremism. And it's a recipe for extremism.
Agreed. And I think that this documentary, and by the way, the director did not come in with an agenda. He was really surprised. Most of the people he talked to are in the middle, saying, yeah, I'm an independent, but I just don't want to vote. I'm tired of voting for the far left and the far right. I'm looking for people to keep the lights on, to fix the roads, to plow the streets.
I'm so excited. I will be there. I am very excited about this.
Well, what's yours? What's your pick?
Okay, so my top pick is It's Gonna Be Hot. That's not my pick, but we will survive.
Yes.
It's Gonna Be Hot. Still more. It's just going to keep continuing. It's no end in sight. But also, if you're looking to cool off, something that I thought was refreshing and amazing was the roasted peach salad at Rustica. That was...
What?
George, let me tell you what.
Peach salad?
Roasted peach salad.
Okay, I'm writing this down. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a caprese salad. So they have heirloom tomatoes, they have balsamic vinegar, they have these delicious roast peaches, mozzarella type cheese. It was just completely refreshing. It's cool. It was, I don't know, in the summer, I'm not like super hungry for a heavy meal. I just want something light. So it was like the perfect size. I had it on a day. It was super, super hot. It was very refreshing. I'm waiting for an opportunity to go back and have it again. But so if you're looking for, you don't want to cook because it's hot, that's a great option. It's a fantastic. That's my top pick for you don't want to cook. It's super hot this weekekend.
I love it. And you said Rustica?
Yep, at Rustica on 8th Street.
Okay, just generally, how? So a couple of servings. Paint me a word picture of what that looks like. I mean, is it enough for two?
No, it's definitely a one, or if you're looking for a little more food, maybe a share and get something else.
Got it.
But yeah, for me, for summer, for dinner, it was absolutely perfect. Super refreshing. I'm definitely going back for that.
I am so there this weekend.
Well, I hope you have a great weekend. There's great movies, great food, and everyone stay cool. That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter, and our music is by Up Is the Down Is the. We'll be back on Monday to chat with a longtime Republican leader who's concerned about the direction of his party. You won't want to miss it.